A big mistake designers make when designing their first font is making the lowercase t too tall. The lowercase t doesn't go as high as your ascenders or even your cap heights. Instead, the crossbar sits on that X height to marry it with the other lowercase letters, and then there's just a small, usually triangular piece that attaches to the stem from that crossbar. That puts it about a third to at most about halfway between the X height and the cap height or even the ascender. When a stem connects to a bowl like a capital D, P, R, or B, there's usually a stick or a horizontal stick that connects the stem to the bowl so that those letters open up a little bit more and are better proportioned. A huge mistake designers make when designing their first typefaces are not adjusting the width of their diagonal strokes. When designing, sometimes we'll have a vertical stroke and then we're going to design like a V or W or capital A and we just slant that, but really that's the same metric, but it looks slimmer. What you need to do with those diagonals is make them just a little bit wider, particularly as they get sharper and sharper. That way, when you have your vertical strokes next to your diagonal strokes, they look optically similar. Letterforms like a lowercase double story G, lowercase double story A, lowercase s, and sometimes that capital W can be really tricky to figure out. Luckily, there are thousands of good type designs, particularly the older you go, and especially if you stay away from free typeface downloads, that have examples of how people have solved those problems. Even the nuances, like which direction the serifs point on a lowercase u, are details that have been resolved in the past and is worth looking at to see how you can use it in your typeface. A time-sucking mistake that designers use in font design software is drawing every serif. In applications like glyphs, you can use corner components or just regular old components to draw a serif that you can then apply to every letter form, or every uppercase letter form for one serif and every lowercase letter form for a lowercase serif. That when you go and manipulate that one component, it adjusts across your entire alphabet. With those capabilities, you can even adjust widths or heights of those serifs, like the lowercase p, whose bottom serif isn't actually symmetrical, and still go back and edit just that original component and make changes to dozens of letter forms with one small edit. If you're just starting out in type design and want to design a typeface for text, be sure to not set that crossbar too high. Crossbars in letters like your H, B, and A are all meant to balance out the top half and lower half of your letter forms. The goal of text typefaces is always to make the reading experience as easy and as seamless as possible. So that balance in the top half of letter forms and the bottom half of letter forms is really part of the goal of making that reading experience seamless. When designing your first font, please don't copy and paste that capital P for the capital R. The capital P has a larger bowl because it doesn't have anything underneath the bowl, and it's balancing that upper space with the lower space. The capital R, on the other hand, has the leg that goes out diagonal, which takes up some of that white space, making the space under it a little bit smaller, and even sometimes giving space to the right of the character. That means the bowl of the R needs to be a little bit smaller so that it can balance the white space all around that letter form. A huge mistake you might be making when drawing logo marks and your first font is not using overshoots. When you compare letter forms like a capital H to a capital O, what's really happening is the capital O is a little bit bigger because it doesn't take up as much optical space in those corners. That means that circle shape needs to be a little bit larger so that it looks visually balanced with that square shape. The same is true of points in your letter forms. Things like the capital A or the capital V, those pointed characters extend into an overshoot, making them a little bit taller than that capital H actually, but when you look at the letter form and word mark as a whole, it balances out more optically.